Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the San Martin SN004-G. This watch is available from watchdives.com for $237 US. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in this black plastic Pelican style case. I like this style of Pelican case because they are very durable and practical, and both halves are lined with two pieces of foam, and that does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. This is the plastic warranty card one gets with the watch. As you can see, it's stamped by San Martin and filled in with the date of purchase. Now usually San Martin watches are covered by a two-year international guarantee, but if you purchase the watch from watchdives.com, the watch is covered by a 3-year international guarantee, which is very reassuring. This is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams, instructions in English, and it does a good job of detailing every aspect of the San Martin SN004-G, including the operation of the movement used, which is the Epson caliber YN55A. And lastly, one also gets these two tools, both made from stainless steel, nailed to a high standard. The spring bar tool has a two-prong fork at one end and a push pin at the other end, and one also gets a flat-bladed screwdriver for removing the screw pins in the bracelet. So nice to see these tools included, and they are good quality. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the San Martin SN004-G, 38mm case diameter. It has a 46mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 13.1mm including the double dome sapphire crystal, and it has a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet has rivet links, and it tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the 2-button push clasp. As you can see, the 2-button push clasp is signed to a high standard with the San Martin hex applied logo, which is embossed. Good foam resistance to the 2-button push triggers. I like the large bevels which are machined on the edge, polished to a flawless mirror finish, and that contrasts beautifully with the brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks. So beautiful luster to the 316L grade stainless steel. I'm often critical of watch brands only having 2 or 3 micro adjustment holes in the clasp, but San Martin have got this correct with 4 micro adjustment holes, which allows for plenty of fine tuning to get the bracelet length correct. Double dome sapphire crystal is well executed. It's more scratch resistant than plexiglass, hesselite or acrylic, and it still retains the vintage aesthetic of the domed box style crystal. So excellent choice using sapphire crystal. It's blue tinted AR coating on the underside, and that does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of these silver gilt Mercedes hands. So the Lume is patina Lume, it's C3 Superluminova, and that matches the infill to the ceramic bezel inserts very well. They've got the colour tone match between the peach Lume on the dial and hands with the infill on the ceramic bezel insert done to perfection. The quality of the engraving to the ceramic insert is very good quality, and San Martin deserve full credit for it. With regards to the bezel, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, finished to a high standard, mirror polishing to the gear cut teeth profile, and the interior of the teeth are brushed satin finish, so it's a very well executed bezel, very grippy, so it's practical as well as being aesthetically pleasing. So let's test the bezel action. Good foam resistance to the 120 clicks, it feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. No lateral side to side play whatsoever. No back play whatsoever, very well executed. Let's just check the alignments. Perfect. The Lume pip and triangle on the ceramic bezel insert align perfectly with the 12 o'clock index on the dial. So perfect bezel action, no criticisms whatsoever. The crown is coin edge finished, solid 316L grade stainless steel. Now minor criticism, they are still using the S sign on the crown. Personally, I would prefer to see them upgrade to the San Martin hex as per the SN021-G. That was a notable improvement over the SN020-G and the introduction of the San Martin hex. I would like to see them introduce it to all their models, including this SN004-G. I really dislike this S because it looks like a US dollar symbol, and I think the San Martin Hex is far more aesthetically pleasing. So that's something I hope they change. Let's test the action. Good foam resistance to the threading, but it is silky smooth. Now, this uses the Epson caliber YN55A, so it's got a different feeling to the Seiko NH35A, and I'll explain why they changed over to using the Epson caliber YN55A. Currently, there is a shortage of Seiko NH35A movements in China. So San Martin have been looking for alternatives, and they did extensive testing on the Epson caliber YN55A as an alternative because the dimensions of both movements are very close. The main difference is the NH35A has 24 joules, the Epson caliber YN55A has 22 joules, but the architecture of both movements is very similar. They both run at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz, and they both have hand winding and hacking. So many other brands have had to do the same thing due to the shortage of Seiko NH35A movements in China. For example, Pagani Design have switched over to using the Miyota 8205 in their PD1661, for example. So the YN55A does feel slightly different. It's got firmer resistance when manually winding it. In the first position, it's the manual wind position, and one can manually wind it to top it up to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. So one can feel the tension building up in the mainspring, but it does have more resistance, and that does take some getting used to. The YN55A is a date complication movement, and so yes, in the first click position, that is the phantom date position, as there's no date complication. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. As you can see, I have now stopped the second hand dead, I've hacked it, and that's the time setting position. Absolutely silky smooth. Lighter resistance in the time setting position than the Seiko NH35A, so again, that takes some getting used to if you're familiar with the NH35A. But the YN55A is a good, reliable, solid, well-proven workhorse movement. Pushing it back in has a good positive click, and that restarts the movement, so I'll just test screwing it back down. Immediate pickup on the thread, so very good interface between the internal thread of the crown and the external thread of the crown tube. Now, it's got a very spring-loaded action, so one has to really push in the winding stem into the movement, and again, that might take some getting used to if you're familiar to the crown action of the NH35A. The Epson caliber YN55A has more resistance, and one really has to push in the winding stem to get the threading, the internal thread of the crown to engage with the crown tube, but the pickup is immediate. So although it does feel different to the NH35A, in terms of its build quality, quality control, reliability, they really are equal. So excellent crown action. Good smooth threading, and just the only thing to note is that it has more resistance in unscrewing and screwing it back down, and there is more resistance in pushing the crown back in. But other than that, it feels very similar when manually winding, despite the mainspring having more resistance than the NH35A. So with regards to the caseback, it's sterile, as you can see. It looks very similar to the SN008 caseback or the SN021, for example. No engraving whatsoever, but it is very smooth and flat to the wrist. Low profile, it's got a coin edge finishing to it, so it does look similar to a Rolex or Tudor caseback. Solid 316L grade stainless steel, and it provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters of water resistance, so very nicely finished with concentric brass satin finishing throughout. The solid end links are a good tight fit to the case, brass satin finish to the underside of the case, very well executed. The interior of the clasp is finished to a high standard, brass satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks, and it's just absolutely gorgeous, nice luster to it. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box, and I'm pleased to report that it fits my 8-inch wrist perfectly without removing any links in the rivet oyster style bracelet. Now, a thing to note is watchdives.com are currently selling female pivoted end links to fit this SN004-G for $10 US. I'm pleased to report that San Martin have responded to feedback from collectors saying that they would prefer to see female pivoted end links rather than the male end links they've used on the SN004-G as per the SN008-G. And I think that they made the correct decision by producing the female pivoted end links. Now, on a larger wrist, if you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, you will find the male end links do fit very well. For example, on my 8 inch wrist, I've got no problem with the male end links, and that's due to the 46mm lug to lug measurement, which is relatively short. If this had a longer lug to lug measurement of 48mm, then yes, the overall effective lug to lug measurement with the male end links would be too long, because it would be circa 50mm. But with a 46mm lug to lug measurement, the male end links do fit a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist very well. But however, if you are a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, I highly recommend that you purchase the female pivoted end links and you upgrade, because that will give you a better fit on a smaller wrist. Very aesthetically pleasing piece. It's got a good proportion to the head of the piece. I love the taper of the rivet link bracelet, 20mm tapering down to the 2-button push clasp. Beautiful luster to the 316L grade stainless steel. The blue tinted AR coating on the underside of the double dome sapphire crystal does an outstanding job of reducing the reflection. And the gilt hands really do complement the patina lume. Lovely peach tone to the patina lume on the Explorer dial. I also like the peach tone to the infill on the ceramic bezel insert. So the feel good factor is outstanding, comfort level is outstanding. It's a good looking piece, it's comfortable to wear for long periods of time. 13.1mm is relatively low profile, so it's easily going to slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. With regards to the heft, it's only 142 grams. Now, I think that is very impressive, because usually with a 38mm piece or 39mm, one would expect the heft to be circa 150 grams. So at 142, it feels very lightweight, very well balanced on the bracelet, and I think it's a very comfortable piece to wear. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. Now, I've got high expectations of this Lume because it's C3 Superluminova, and that's one of my personal favourites, as you'll know from my previous reviews. C3 Superluminova is very good quality Superluminova. So as always, I'm using my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and that has actually exceeded my expectations. It has not disappointed. Incredibly bright, and it's glowing for a good length of time. I like the symmetry of the Explorer style dial layout with the 9, 6 and 3 large Arabic numerals fully lumed. The Mercedes hands are glowing incredibly brightly, and they're very impressive. Also, there's a good size lume dot on the lume pip of the ceramic bezel insert. So it's very well executed. The quality of the C3 Superluminova is outstanding, and San Martin deserve full credit for not cutting any corners with it. Slight mismatch in the brightness. If you look at the Mercedes hands, they are glowing brighter than the printed dial, and I would like to see San Martin improve upon that and match the tone of the C3 Superluminova better. So the brightness, the emission of the lume is equalised between the Mercedes hands and the printed dial. But having said that, the lume is performing very well on both the printed dial and also the applied indices and the lume pip. So outstanding. And as you can see, in daylight conditions, they've got the colour match correct between the Mercedes hands and also the printed dial. So it's curious that when it's glowing, the hands seem to glow brighter in a lighter tone of C3 Superluminova rather than the hands, but in daylight they look exactly the same tone. The hands don't look lighter. So I think that's down to more layers of C3 Superluminova being applied to the Mercedes hands than the dial, because the more layers you apply, obviously the brighter the emission of the glowing. But having said that, in daylight conditions the tone matches correctly, which is very good. So let's discuss the movement used. So as I've explained, there's currently a shortage of Seiko NH35A movements in China, and San Martin have now switched to using the Epson caliber YN55A as an alternative. So the Epson caliber YN55A is used by Orient in several watches, including the Kamasu, and they call it the Epson caliber F6922, but it is the identical movement to the YN55A. It's just branded as the F6922. So it's been in use for several years in Orient watches. It's reliable, well proven, accurate, it's a good solid movement, and it has 22 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is useful complications, 40-hour power reserve, which is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the caliber YN55A is -15 to +25 seconds per day. So a rather wide accuracy range, but very similar to the Seiko NH35A, which it replaces. Now I'm pleased to report that this one has been very well regulated by San Martin, and it's running consistently at +6 seconds per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 40 hours. And really, to get +6 seconds per day at this price point is very good. It's only $237 and +6 seconds per day really is excellent value, excellent accuracy, at this price point. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch for my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So in order to weigh that up, is this excellent quality and excellent value, one has to closely examine the finishing throughout. The flanks to the case have a beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing, which is longitudinal. The finishing to the bezel is outstanding. The finishing to the end links is also outstanding. Beautiful luster to the 316L grade stainless steel oyster style bracelet, and flawless mirror polishing to the rivet links. So throughout, this watch has exceeded my expectations. The quality of the finishing is the kind of finishing one would expect to see with a mid-tier piece, not a low-tier piece, costing only $237. When I'm referring to mid-tier, I'm talking about watches that cost between $500 to $2,000. That is the price point of mid-tier. This is low tier, this is $237, so significantly less expensive than a mid-tier piece, but one is getting mid-tier quality finishing. The quality of the case finishing in particular really impresses me. I like the large machined bevels. The chamfers on the case are done to perfection, no sharp edges whatsoever, no burrs, and the brushed satin finishing is just outstanding. I absolutely love the luster to it. So overall, the quality control, the build's quality, and the finishing is outstanding. Bezel action is good, crown action is good. I have no reservations whatsoever about San Martin changing from the Seiko NH35A to using the Epson caliber YN55A, because I know it's a well-proven movement in Orient watches such as the Camesu, when it's branded as the Epson caliber F6922, as I've discussed. So yes, this is an outstanding watch. It's excellent quality and excellent value. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the San Martin SN004-G. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.